Struggling to figure out if you should release your tracks with a label or stay independent? It's a really tough call, but don't worry, I've got your back. Today we're breaking down the pros and cons of each so that you can make the best decision for your project. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hyperbits channel. And if you're new here, I'm Zach, the lead instructor of our Hyperbits Masterclass. And today we're going to dive into a question a ton of you have hit me up about: should you team up with a record label or go solo and independent? Understanding these differences and what each path means for you and your project can be an absolute game changer. So let's dive in and figure this out together. Now, this video is about to be a doozy of information, and it might be tempting to click away, but I promise you, if you really take in everything I have to say in its entirety, it will make the decision between going with a label or not a no-brainer for every single release you have moving forward. So to keep us organized, here's a quick outline of what you can expect from this video. First, we're going to jump into understanding labels so that you have clarity surrounding what it is that we're dealing with. Then we're going to jump into the pros and cons of working with a label, followed by the pros and cons of working the independent route. Then we're going to jump into some practical examples so you can see both in action. And finally, we're going to deliver our go-to factors to consider when making a decision. Before discussing the pros and cons of working with labels or not, it's crucial to understand that not all labels are the same. Labels range from major players like Universal Music Group to small independent startups. The quality and resources of each can vary significantly, so thorough research is essential here. Here are some key points to consider when evaluating a label. Most importantly, their track record, the success of their recently signed artists, the resources they can provide, or the financial and marketing support available, which we'll go into a little bit more later, their reputation and feedback from other artists, and definitely the contracts that their artists sign. Understanding them and seeking legal advice on terms is essential to you making the right call for your project. More on this later too. The main takeaway is that not every label is the same, and knowing what and who you are getting involved with is essential for making the right call. But with that being said, some general concepts are a factor in all label deals, and that's why I want to focus on that today, so you can have the ammunition you need to make the right decision. So the basic idea behind signing with a music label means partnering with an organization that helps you with the recording, marketing, and distribution of your music. Let's start by analyzing the pros of label releases. Most labels give you access to professional resources. When you sign with a label, you can gain access to top-notch recording studios, experienced producers, and professional engineers who can help you create the highest quality song that you can. For example, artists like Adele have benefited immensely from production expertise available through major labels. A lot of the mid-tier labels have access to mixing or mastering engineers to help improve the overall quality of your releases, if that's something that you might need. Or a label might suggest adding a collaborating partner to a release to help increase visibility or vision even further. Next and most significant is financial support. Labels often provide advances or marketing budgets which can help cover the costs of living, recording, touring, and just getting more people to hear your music. This financial backing can be crucial, especially for new artists who might not have the capital to invest in their careers. Think of it like getting a loan to boost your career. There's also usually some level of industry connections and exposure. Labels typically have established relationships with media, radio stations, maybe streaming services, and other industry players. This can significantly increase your chances of getting your music heard. For instance, Billie Eilish's rapid rise was supported by the extensive network and promotional power of her label. There are also many artist-driven labels popping up nowadays that might offer support and exposure from the artists who run them themselves. John Summit is famously known for promoting all of his label, Experts Only's, releases on his thriving TikTok account, which can be huge exposure for an upcoming artist. But with these benefits definitely come some cons of releasing with labels. Entering into a label deal almost always gives you less creative control. When you sign with a label, you might have to compromise on your artistic vision. Labels often have a say in your music, the branding, the image. This means that the final product might not fully align with your original idea. For instance, this could be something small, like needing to add the label's logo to your artwork. Or this could be something huge, like being pressured into changing your sound to fit commercial trends. Financial commitments, while nice in theory, can be a double-edged sword. Advances from labels are not free money, they are recoupable. This means that you have to pay them back from your earnings before you start making a profit. Additionally, labels often take a significant percentage of your revenue, which can just limit your income in general. And probably where I've had personally the most shock in my time in the industry has been in the suggested contract terms with many labels. This can include long-term commitments that restrict your freedom to release music independently or with other labels. It can include language that takes away your freedom to deny usage of your music in certain environments you maybe aren't comfortable with, or even give a label an out on not paying their agreed marketing budgets for various reasons outside of your control. The bottom line is you always need legal advice before signing anything to avoid these pitfalls. More on this later too. Next, let's explore self-releasing. This means distributing your music independently without a label. Let's start with the pros of self-releasing. Unlike with labels, you get full creative control when you release your music, so you have complete control over all the branding, the artwork. You can experiment with different sounds and styles without any external pressure. This is ideal for artists who value artistic freedom above all else. Look at Jake, who has thrived maintaining his independence and creative vision. Independently, there is also a greater share of revenue. By cutting out the middleman, you get to keep a larger portion of your earnings from sales, streams, merchandise. This can be really financially rewarding in the long run, especially if you build a dedicated fan base. Many labels will take between 50 to 90% of the money earned from your music. You can't forget about flexibility. Self-releasing allows you to set your own schedule and release music whenever you feel it's ready. You can respond quickly to marketing trends or personal inspiration without having to wait for label approval. This agility can be a major advantage in today's fast-paced music industry. But just like with labels, there can be cons of self-releasing too. The biggest of which for many artists is greater responsibility. When you self-release, you are responsible for funding and managing all aspects of your music career. This includes recording, marketing, distribution, and more. It can be very overwhelming, especially if you don't have a team to support you. There can also be many challenges in distribution itself. Getting your music onto major platforms and promoting it can be more difficult without the backing of a label and requires you to learn how to distribute and how all that even works, taking away time from you making your art. You'll need to put an extra effort to network and share your music. Obviously, personal investment can be challenging for many artists. You need to invest time and money into marketing and promoting your music. This can be a significant burden, particularly if you're starting out with limited resources. It's important to realize that you can see success from either of these methods. Take as an example my release, Up All Night, with Michaela and Alex Gaudino. My artist project Science put this song out about a year ago on a label called Seminole Music Group. We decided to release this song with Seminole because after assessing all the options in front of us, Seminole was offering a healthy marketing budget to help push the track, which we didn't really have at the time to spend. They were also the ones who connected us with Michaela and Alex Gaudino and helped us secure the collaboration, which gave our Spotify release more algorithmic love due to the fact that Michaela and Alex have large Spotify follower counts. If you look across the last year, this song has been streamed over 1 million times, averaging around 3,400 daily streams during that period, and stands as our second most streamed song on Spotify to date. Our song More Time, which we put out with Mousetrap last year, hasn't streamed nearly as well, but it has led us to be given the opportunity to play a Mousetrap showcase in Los Angeles, and the track has been played several times by deadmau5 himself on his radio show and mixes. Both of these label releases have had 2 different success metrics, but nonetheless move the needle in the right direction for my artist project Science. On the flip side, we've also had success from independent releases. Our song Daylight went semi-viral on Instagram Reels with over 1 million views, leading us to need a quick release method in order to capitalize on the success. We decided to release it independently with an extensive pre-save campaign, leveraging a service called Laylo to help collect our Instagram fans' contact information. This helps us generate enough pre-save and buzz to land multiple playlists on Spotify, as well as to start a thriving ecosystem in the Laylo platform, which for future releases gives us the ability to mass DM our fans and let them know when new music is out. I highly recommend looking into Laylo and seeing if it can help you with your project and just connect with your fans in general. Now, I could also show you failures with both these methods. We've put out so many songs with many large labels that have gone on to get really zero Spotify support, stream kind of poorly, and have a dismal effect on our fan base growth in general. We've also put out songs independently that have had all the same negative effects, with usually even lower streams than even some of the poorest label releases. But I don't want to bore you with those specifics because it doesn't really matter in helping you make a decision. So if you can have success and failure working with labels and releasing independently, where does that leave you? Which method should you choose? In order to help you make your final decision, here are our go-to factors to consider, which should help you make the appropriate calculations needed to decide which method you're going to use. I'm going to break them down into like a master list for you to have and explain what questions to ask yourself for each item that's in that list. The goal here is once you've done this process for each option you have at your disposal for a given release, you should have enough data to make the best decision possible. Let's start with personal career goals. Understanding what you're trying to actually accomplish as an artist. Are you looking to build an audience to be able to play more shows and eventually tour? Are you just trying to gain large stream numbers and make a living off of your music? Or maybe you have a very specific audience that you can only access via one specific marketing lane that you have to conquer, like a specific label or scene online. Basically, the point here is to figure out what is actually going to move the needle for your brand. In knowing that, you'll quickly discover if any label is suited for helping here or if the independent route is more preferred. Genre considerations is also a big factor to consider. Some genres might benefit more from a specific label supporting due to their commercial nature, while others might thrive independently. I don't want you to feel pigeonholed as an artist, but the reality is a lot of you might fall into a category based on the type of music you make, and understanding who the larger players in those categories are can help you decide on what labels to shoot for potentially. A great idea here is to look at artists in your lane that are doing better than you. Who are they working with? Are they releasing on their own or with their own label? You'd be surprised how quickly you can uncover a path to success for many more established genres. Now, current market trends is probably my favorite concept to talk about because it has a lot of misinformation out there. It's critical to stay updated on how the music industry is evolving and what opportunities are available for artists. For instance, many of you might think that labels in general can get you on Spotify playlists. While it used to be true that labels had contacts at Spotify and could help here, most labels nowadays don't have any more power than you do using the Spotify for Artists pitch feature. Spotify has moved away from editorial editors controlling playlist placement with relationships in favor of what's known as off-platform momentum. This means that most artists and songs that get playlist support are thriving on social media in some way, which helps drive more listeners to Spotify. While relationships still might exist in certain spheres of the industry, and with a few larger major labels, in general your own marketing efforts on your socials is more likely to drive Spotify support than what any label could do for you. This is just one small example of how understanding a marketing trend could help you make better decisions. We've had several labels promise Spotify playlist support only to not be able to deliver, for example, and if we had known this earlier, we might not have entered into those particular label deals. You would also be surprised how little many labels actually know and how to market songs effectively in today's landscape. Just because you might be dealing with an established entity, don't assume they know better than you do. There are many labels out there that don't really have marketing strategies, but rather they just release a lot of music and hope that some of those releases do well, which will make up for all the releases that don't. I know a lot of you might not be social media friendly marketing geniuses, and that's okay too. But don't be conned into this idea that simply the fact that you're working with a label is going to prevent you from having to figure out how to market your own music well. Regardless of who you're working with, the current industry requires you to spend time and effort building an audience yourself. It's very rare that this is done for you in any meaningful way. And lastly, let's talk about the importance of evaluating your financial readiness and resources you have at your disposal. What should be abundantly clear to you by now is that releasing music and having any sort of success requires visibility on that music. This is most likely why the majority of you are watching this video. You're trying to determine if working with a label is going to help you get more visibility. The reality of today's landscape in music is that there is just so much competition that it requires both good art and good marketing strategies in order to cut through the noise. Most good marketing strategies require a decent amount of money and effort. It might be super favorable for you to do a deal with a label if they're offering you several $1,000s, for instance, to help boost ads and potentially work with influencers maybe to help attract a greater level of visibility on your songs. This is totally okay, and as long as you've weighed the financial sacrifice that you're agreeing to in order to receive that upfront marketing gain, you are making an informed decision, and that's all you can really do. If you take to heart these concepts when making a decision, you should be in a pretty good place to make the right decision. Some things I'll leave you with here are that it's imperative to always seek legal advice whenever dealing with a contract. Quite simply, if you don't understand something, do not sign it until you do. The last thing you want is to feel pressured into a situation because someone's offering you money and end up hurting your progress towards your goals. Along these lines, some key points in contracts to look out for are terms regarding creative control, revenue splits, and contract duration. Make sure you understand the recoupment terms and any obligations you have to fulfill. You can find decent, inexpensive legal advice online, but even just putting a contract into ChatGPT these days and asking it to simplify can demystify a lot of legal jargon. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, so don't take legal advice from me. Just please make sure you aren't rushing through this part of the process because most likely you will regret it. Whether you choose to release your music through a label or independently, the most important thing is to make an informed decision that aligns with your career goals and values. I'd love to hear more from all of you with your experiences releasing music with labels or independently, and as well as any additional value you think is important to bring up when weighing this decision. Don't forget to leave a comment and share your thoughts and feelings about this and all of your experiences with music release strategies. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more music industry insights. Happy releasing.